It is now my very great pleasure to move on and introduce the panel by European Innovation Council, and it's my especially great pleasure to introduce the EIC ambassador, former EIC Fund Investment Committee member, early stage investor, and a lovely member of our community, Heidi Kakko.
Hello, good morning. I'm really glad that at least some people have found the stage so that we can have some fun together here for the next 30-40 minutes. And my role is first to guide you a little bit through the EIC big picture, and then I have the pleasure to ask to join me the two panelists so that we will have the insights from the startup founders, how easy or difficult or how valid it actually is what I am talking about. So, as said, my name is Heidi Kakko, and I'm wearing the badge of EIC ambassador, and the ambassadors are for EIC, the people who love their concept and who work for free for EIC. So that it means that everything I really tell you about EIC, it is because I believe into that. And my previous connection with EIC has been long-term already. I was, for the 2 years, the member of the Pilot Advisory Board, and then for 2.5 years, the member of the investment committee of the EIC fund. And my background is of an early stage investor. I have a deep love for deep tech startups, and therefore also I advise and mentor the early stage companies quite a lot, because I really want them to succeed. So, as the startups start their pitches with a problem, then I also decided to show you the big problem that we are actually facing. Everybody knows that due to the crisis, the supply chains were broken, and somehow we understood that the world is not so unified and so global as we expected it to be, and everybody started somehow to be more regional. So that Europe also figured out that we need some European competitiveness to be strengthened, and also we need the technological sovereignty of Europe. And therefore, I thought that it is a very good slide to illustrate what has happened with disruptive technologies over the last decades. So there was the first wave, mostly led by Europe and US. Then there was the second wave of breakthrough technologies, and mostly led by US and Europe, and Asia were somehow followers. Asia is also taking a very strong position now. And now the question is that what will happen in the future? What will be the position of regions in developing those new technologies? And definitely there are disruptive technologies starting from quantum computing, hydrogen, gene therapy. Artificial intelligence is already somehow like the mature phase, but still the question is that do we need a strategic positioning in Europe for breakthrough technologies? And that is the description of the problem that the EIC, the European Innovation Council, somehow tries to solve, or at least tries to help to be solved. And that is the solution. EIC is intended to be the Europe's most ambitious innovation initiative. There is 10 billion euros dedicated for the program to invest into breakthrough technologies and disruptive innovators in Europe. That is the reason why I'm standing here on the stage and why you are listening to the presentation. And definitely, there are 3 different parties in that game, and all those different parties have slightly different agendas. If we talk about Europe, definitely it's the European competitiveness, technological sovereignty, the race somehow to keep the pace with. If we talk about Estonia or any other country or nation, then it's also about the competitiveness of the country. In Estonia, we have the concept of 300 deep tech startups. So that is something that we see that Europe and the European Innovation Council somehow can contribute to. And despite of the fact in which country are you operating, definitely the countries have also their national strategies, how to compete within Europe. And then there are you, the founders, the co-workers, the ecosystem players somehow who would like to understand the agenda and to see that whether you can fit into that playground. And definitely there are 3 different parties, but the need is the same. We all want to do something to make the world a better place. And if that is your intention as the startup founder, and you have built something that is a breakthrough technology or somehow disrupting the industry that you are operating, or is based on social innovation, then definitely the European Innovation Council and its program is intended to somehow support you. So definitely the money is bridging the gap, the financial gap that the innovative companies face in order to bring their products and services to the market. And EIC intends to become the largest deep tech investor in Europe, but not operating in solo, to support the early stage companies, but also to support more than ever the European scale-ups. And in doing that, we also support the ecosystem on a European level, but also on national levels. It really requires a map to navigate through the European programs. So it is a very easy map. So if you start from the bottom here, so basically Pathfinder is something that is meant for consortia in a very early stage. We are talking about the TRL levels, like technology readiness levels from 1 to 4, and that is mostly grants up to 4 million and to fund the breakthrough technologies. Then EIC transition, the next stop on that way is for consortia and single companies that provides also the grants up to 2.5 million euros and to develop the business cases, and the TRL levels are from 4 to 6. Then further, there is EIC Accelerator that will focus today. Accelerator provides the funding for single companies, the blended finance type of thing. It means the grants, 2.5 million, and then the equity investments of up to 15 million, and something that is something extraordinary in that whole playground. And then there is also something that you can see as seal of excellence, and there is no money attached. So the question is very often that what will happen to you if you receive the seal of excellence and no funding? And some countries have solved it with national funding. There was just the news yesterday or day before yesterday that Spain, for example, has a national program to fund those companies who receive the seal of excellence from the EIC Accelerator program. And then if you get the funding for the TRL 6 to 9, then you can take the train further, use also the business accelerator services of the EIC, and then finally you can also have the prizes. But definitely the ultimate prize is that if you build something that changes the world. Basically the same logic on a time scale. There are 2 valleys of death. The very early stage valley in the pre-seed stage, and then when you're trying to scale up your company. So these are the 2 valleys of death that the EIC program intends to focus on and to help to overcome. But there are also some other players, so that European Research Council in that very early phase, then European Institute of Innovation and Technology and InvestEU that support the whole journey. And as said, EIC Accelerator provides not only the money, as being a venture type of investor, we always love to see that that is something beyond the money, so that the network, the connections, the skills, the expertise that definitely the early stage companies need beyond the money. And if I were a startup founder, I would tell that how important it is, because it really makes huge impact. So that what we have figured out, and these are the numbers by the end of 2021, that those investments through the EIC programs have incentivized additional 10 billion euros, mostly in a format of co-investments by other investors. And the portfolio, the total portfolio of EIC has increased significantly in value, so that by the end of 2021, and that was definitely a good year for unicorns also, there were at least 12 unicorns in that portfolio, but also more than 100 companies that had their annual recurring revenue of over 100 million euros. So these are the companies that actually have the ability to change something. And not to mention, to be less important, that EIC has a relatively high focus or high scale for female-founded companies, so that is something also that we are pretty proud of. What does it mean? On an annual basis, it basically means that there are, in average, 150, 160 companies that will receive the money. The hit rate, how easy or difficult it is approximately 16% of those companies that fill in the full application are actually selected for interview. So 16% selected for interviews, but definitely the money as the grant or the investment money is received by less, so that the hit rates are slightly higher than for the best VC investors, but definitely approximately 5% of the total applicants will actually receive the funding. It means that the competition in Europe is very strong, so there are plenty of good companies, but also the funding is probably insufficient, even with those numbers. That if you look at the 2 years that are on the screen, within the 2 years, approximately 700 million euros was given as grants, and over 1 billion euros was decided to be invested as equity. And now, more specifically about the EIC fund, it manages equity investments in startups and SMEs that are selected as a part of the EIC Accelerator program. It is a dedicated impact venture fund that has a longer time perspective, but the investment still will be held for 7 to 10 years, like a normal VC fund, but it is totally owned by the European Commission. It is meant to bridge the funding gap. It can start with the equity investments from 500,000 and go up to 15 million. It is a huge range. And it targets minority stakes of ownership. And it doesn't want to crowd out, but to crowd in the private investors to go invest together, and often also to follow those private investors, not to take the lead role. So, if you're thinking about whether EIC fund can invest into your company, it's pretty much that, answering the question whether your company is potentially having a market-creating innovation, whether it's a breakthrough technology, how disruptive it is, and in which stage are you currently, so that the investment is meant for the TRL 9. And definitely, the terms of investment are considered on a case-to-case basis, and it can be in a format of direct or quasi-equity. And now the question is that, is EIC the right investor for you? And to illustrate that, I would like to ask my panelists to join me on the stage please, Olesja and Kristjan. And then we can dig deeper a bit with that. So, it will be like a tough interview, not as tough as the EIC interview, but just to be honest, be transparent, because the people will really benefit from that you disclose. So, let's start. Who are you and what does your company do? Let's, Olesja, start with you.
Hello from my side. I'm Olesja Bondarenko, CEO and one of the co-founders of the company called Nanordica Medical. At Nanordica, we developed antibacterial nanotechnology to cure and prevent infections. And that's basically it.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Kristjan?
Hi, I'm Kristjan Tiik. I'm co-founder and CEO of EFENCO. And EFENCO stands for Efficient Energy Conversion. And we convert energy more efficiently, and starting from industrial heating, reducing at least 20% of CO2 and fuel consumption.
Okay, sounds complicated. So,
yes.
How disruptive your technology is? It is disruptive because otherwise EIC would not give us money. So basically, what we did, we invented the technology how we can improve antibacterial effect of quite known antibacterial substance, silver. So we combine nanoparticles in a special way that we can, and because of that we can develop better antibacterial products for different medical applications.
Okay, Kristjan, what about you? How disruptive or changing it is?
Well, I would say that it's so disruptive that it has been 7 years to convince that it's even possible to. Some say that we even challenge the fundamental physics laws, but we don't. Anyway, the disruptiveness comes from, let's say, we interrelate with quantum physics, with material technology and plasma physics. So the combined solution gives us the result. So it is really disruptive.
Okay, clear. Everybody understood. So what is the stage, the development stage of your technology?
We have, our technology is actually a platform technology. We can develop different antibacterial like textiles and medical devices, and we decided that our first product is antibacterial wound dressing, and we are currently developing it and close to the final result, meaning technical development, clinical trials, and also receiving of the CE marking to start sales. So we are currently in the clinical trial stage.
So in TRL levels, how do you define it?
It's around 6.
Okay. What about EFENCO?
It's supposed to be the same, as an accelerator starts from 6. Anyway, it's always the game how you tell the story. That in some context the TRL level is definitely 6, but in the other context it might be lower. So we have done our industrial validations, and we moving towards let's say durability tests.
Okay, so now you understand in broad terms what they are up to. So why did you consider EIC as a potential funding partner in your specific cases?
Okay, I can start now. I mean, it's kind of no-brainer that being in this Death Valley, where investor doesn't trust you yet, but the technology disruptiveness is so huge, so it's kind of a dilemma always that the investor too early for investor, and that's kind of obvious way to overcome this Death Valley. It's kind only way for disruptive innovation, I would say.
Okay, then I rephrase my question for Olesja. So how much money did you ask for and in which instrument?
You mean overall or in EIC accelerator?
From EIC.
So for EIC, we asked 2.4 million euros plus it's a grant and also equity. And so basically we used grant first scheme, and I think it's very suitable for the startups who plan to increase their valuation significantly by completing the first stage, like first milestones of the study, because for us it was very important to get proper clinical validation for our solution, that it increases so much the value of the startup, and this is the reason why we actually picked up this grant first scheme.
Okay, let me clarify. You asked for 2.4 million of grant and how much of equity?
So basically we asked 2.5 of equity.
Okay, got it. What about Efenko? How much did you ask and what did you get?
We got 2.5 grant and 8 million equity as a blended finance, if we go specific.
Okay, 2.5 million of grant and 8 million of equity. So as the EIC fund is a co-investment fund, so that they assume the private investors to match the amount, does it mean that you actually would go for the 16 million of equity?
True, yes. At the moment we're preparing the round. It's supposed to happen at the end of the year. EIC, but actually European Investment Bank does a due diligence process with us right now, and the total equity will be 16.
Okay. We tend to say that EIC fund is a very well kept secret, so that not too many know about that. How did you get to know that you can actually apply also for the equity from the EIC?
Actually, Heidi, you don't know that, but I got it to know from you, because I first participated at this kind of event. And I was sitting in the audience and thinking, it's not for me, actually, we don't fit. And then I was, for some years, we were trying to raise the money from investors. And then we thought, okay, maybe we should consider. And actually, we got to know about this grant also later from our networks. So basically, they kind of reminded in different channels.
Thank you, Alicia. I must disclose that actually I'm an investor in Alicia's company also, because I'm a lead investor for an angel syndicate, and we invested into Nordica Medical basically in the end of the last year. And I'm so glad that actually I was the one that you learned about from that. So, what about Efenko? How did you learn that you could go for an equity from the EIC fund?
I mean, for me, the grant world has been somehow always in the radar. My background goes to EIS, innovation support, so I kind of knew everything about this. So I can't put the finger on the moment where I knew the equity part. It was I was aware of it somehow.
Okay. Do you think that EIC as an investor is like well visible, or is it like more behind the curtain?
If your question is whether the startup within, let's say, disruptive innovation can find EIC, then I would say that I don't want to put a bad word, but you should be honest, stupid when you don't seek out, because this is the option to overcome this death valley. It's kind of only way. I don't think that this is challenge to. It's not enough visible. You can find it one way or the other.
You can find it if you understand that you can benefit from it somehow. Okay. Did you have the private money in your company before applying to the EIC funding?
Yes. No, actually, I think with the story, longer version is that we applied 4 times, and during this process, during 2 years, even more, I think that's one of the key result. Also, we grow internally. We grow within the applying next time, and within that process, we also raised 1.1 million with also help of Estonian Angel Investor Association, and yes, we had private investors.
4 times what resilience it is, I would say. And as I mentioned that approximately 5% of the applicants are really successful in receiving the equity money. The hit rate for the grants is slightly higher, but 4 times I admire it. So how painful is the application process? So Olesja, what about your experience? How painful it is?
Fairly painful, because I think everyone from our team actually did the best. We actually combined our expertises, and so basically one of our team members, Anna-Liisa Koba, started to write that I was continuing, and then on the interviews we were preparing a lot. So basically it takes time and it takes effort, and we took it really seriously, and we did it in one shot. Basically.
So okay, you didn't apply for 4 times?
No.
First time, successful.
Yes.
4 times, grown and developed over time, successful. But 8 million of equity funding, it is an impressive number, because I think that you have received the largest equity investment so far among the Estonian startups at least. So I'm pretty sure about it. So
Must be disruptive.
It must be disruptive, so that as you are breaking also not only the industry but the laws of physics, so it is definitely disruptive. So what is the biggest difference between the fundraising from the private investors and from the EIC fund as a potential equity investor?
It's very different. In EIC you have a completely other narrative, because you should communicate very clearly your risks. And to investors you don't, so of course you bring out your risks, but it's not the major factors that you try to highlight in the first place. So I think this is one of the biggest differences. And I think this is why this EIC funding actually was quite suitable for us. We were fitting this quite naturally, that our company had these risks that investors don't like, but EIC accelerators sort of understands very well.
So thank you, Olesja. What is, Christian, your experience with that? How different it is, the fundraising?
I mean, the equity part.
Equity part.
It's hard to say. I mean, at the moment we going through the due diligence process with investment banks, so it's kind of for us it was telling the story in the form of the project plan, etc. So in that context, yeah, it was more like written work. Of course, there was the interview and pitching there. But the differentiation is probably that the detail level, that we have to open up all the bits and pieces. And I mean, the earlier question you asked about how painful it was, I believe that the growth is somehow painful, and we grow in this four applications. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely different, because the form you apply is different.
Okay.
With private investors, you pitch your idea, you show the numbers and the team, etc. So it's kind of lighter, I would say, but it is helpful to think through those details.
Okay. So just as the reference, the application process in the EIC accelerator is the same for the grant and for the equity. So it is the same process, and the company has to mark that whether it applies for the blended finance, and the blended finance means that you would seek for both the grant and the equity. So, are there any questions from the audience? First one. So, I don't know whether there is a mic meant for the questions. Probably not, so go ahead.
Two questions. Of the 10 billion, how much is still left? And second question is, which law is
Let's start with the second question.
We don't break any. So it's kind of some say that it seems like, but we don't. Only let's say law of eelarvamus.
Prediction.
Perception. Yeah, kind of people have some kind of fixed mindset, and we break this fixed mindset. That's the only law we break.
And your first question was?
Of the 10 billion, how much is still left for you?
From the 10 billion, how much is left? Plenty. Nobody's going to ask for 10 billion. So the program has been fully operating only from the current year. So that, and within the last first 2 years, approximately 2 billion has been invested. So that there's plenty of dry powder in that EIC accelerator. Any other questions? Oh, there's a hand up. Yes? And be loud, speak up.
I will try to be loud. So, oh, is this better?
Yes.
Yeah, perfect. So I looked at the statistics of the EIC accelerator cohorts, and on average, like 1 or 2 startups from this region is getting this money. So, I mean, like my question is, Estonia is the startup capital of at least Central Europe. Mm-hmm. So what is the reason for this? Why are there, Germany, France are getting tens of companies. There's even Israel who is getting EIC money. So I think Israel has received more EIC money than the whole of CE combined. Mm-hmm. So what is happening here? What is the issue? Because something seems to be off.
Okay, a very good question. I tried to answer that, but I'm not officially responsible for the EIC. But based on my knowledge, you have to take the economies of the size of the countries also into account. And I think that still there is, Italy is very successful, for example. Norway is very successful. Spain is successful in applications. And if you think that what type of startups are there mostly in Estonia, then that is partly also the answer. They are not so disruptive, or they are not focusing so much on breakthrough technologies. So the ability of the research and science system, the ability of universities to, I would say, kick off or to kick out the deep tech companies is still to be developed. And I'm also responsible for that because I'm the chair of Latitude Ventures. And Latitude Ventures is a 100% owned 100% owned by the university holding company in order to invest the IP that is created in the university into those early stage companies and then to get them funded. So a very relevant question. And I believe that a more detailed answer can be received tomorrow from the workshop where Stefan Oki is also present and he can reply to that in details. Thank you. So, and to my great surprise, we're actually running quite at the end of the session. So it was short actually, really short. So we have a last minute going on. And I would like to ask as the last question from you, that very often the startup founders ask for the references from the co-founders or the other startup founders, whether you recommend any specific VC investors to be in your cap table, so that if somebody would ask from you whether you would recommend EIC as the investor in the company, in your company. So, Christian.
Well, I guess, at least for us, it is that it's kind of a quality mark that it's you went through such a process, and yeah, I mean it's for everybody a sign that you have done something right, and definitely I would recommend, yes.
Okay, thank you. Olesa, what about you?
I can only agree that we perceive that many investors and other people that actually taken it as a quality mark, and of course this grant component is super helpful to take the company to the next level, and yeah, I can only recommend.
Thank you. as we have used up all our time, then I thank you very much for that insight. I hope that you can stay for a little longer so that if anybody from the audience have specific questions regarding their specific experience in that process, just feel free to approach and please share your experience. What I would like to say as a conclusion, then when EIC fund was started, it was meant to be very agile. It started to operate as based on startup attitude, I would say. But it is very, very difficult to manage a publicly backed investment fund on a very agile way, or in a very agile way, so that it was meant to be significantly faster. Now, when it's up and running full speed, the process is a bit faster than it was in 2021, 2022. So that definitely some founders have also not so positive experiences, I must say. And what you have to keep in mind is that each venture investor, even if they say that they are venture investors, and it often means that they are willing to take some early stage risks, all investors are risk averse, even the venture capital investors. And as Olesa said, that in the EIC fund, it's very much about risk management. So that is the profile of the investor that you have to be aware of. The better you know the profile of the potential investor, the faster and less painful the process will be for you. Just keep that in mind, and I hope that that insight provided something useful for you. Thank you very much.